So hello and welcome to this little video. The intention here was to try and put something out there for beginner and maybe intermediate guitar players who have been playing on something else and are interested in 7 strings. So for me, I played years and years ago, then restarted as COVID happened, started to take it more seriously. Got myself an online teacher, so a quick shout out to Meryl Bechtold, probably one of the best guitar teachers you'll find. But I started focusing a lot more on metal and trying to learn quite a lot in a very short space of time. So obviously everybody is familiar with 6 strings, and I played around with those for a fair while, started to get back into being able to play, and then noticed that quite a lot of modern bands are using 7 and even 8 strings. So it's like, okay, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages? The way to find out is to actually do it. So I started looking at what the options were and ended up, my big joke was I'm trying to get 20 years experience packed into 2 years. So I ended up experimenting with a few different 7 strings. Again, I would classify myself as pretty much a beginner. I've literally only been playing seriously again for a couple of years, and most of that is learning. So this isn't going to be a video of me playing 5 different guitars and demonstrating how different they sound, when in actual fact on YouTube it's really actually pretty hard to tell the difference between one distorted guitar and another when you start using overdrive. This is more of a technical review. So it's more about what are you actually getting for the money, what can you get, what are the options. I'm really just trying to sort of go through a few things to help people if they're looking to try and get into 7 strings. Here's the experience I had. Again, personal opinion. In terms of where I'm coming from, I'm looking at budget. So living here in Canada, budget to me is a few hundred to maybe topping out at $1,000. Once you get higher than the $1,000 range, you're starting to get into more serious instruments. In terms of comparison, I mean, on 6 string, I kind of gravitate towards some of the double cut type things. So my kind of benchmark guitar, if you like, is a Gibson SG. My favorite 6 strings are both Schecters. I think a lot of the more modern manufacturers are doing better than some of the older manufacturers like Gibson and Fender, who are kind of resting on reputations now. So in terms of value for money, again, I've looked away from some of the older manufacturers and looked at some of the newer guys, particularly some things from Thomann out of Germany. Very much would recommend Thomann as an option if you are looking at buying things and having them shipped. Excellent customer service, they answer your questions, they've got a wide range of products, and stuff comes sensibly packed, and the shipping is not insane. Living in Canada, we get to pay shipping, then we get to pay a lot of customs duty on stuff, so it's expensive to bring stuff in independently. But again, depending on where you are, you may have different taxes and different ways of getting stuff into the country. So once again, it's just a little quick video, more of a technical perspective, just looking at entry-level 7 strings for somebody who maybe just wants to start to explore, or maybe an intermediate player who is trying to figure out, hey, is this for me or not? Let's go. So let's start with the first of the budget 7-string guitars. So this one's the Harley Benton. Technically it's an R457 BK Franfret. I'll put the details in the description. It comes as a pretty basic guitar, black finish. It's got a bolt-on maple neck, nothing special about it. It's got regular tuners, It comes with no-name humbuckers. That's probably the weakest part of the guitar, but you know, you get 24 frets. It needed a little bit of tidying up on the frets. They weren't as nice, a few edges here, but that's a fairly quick and easy thing to do. The fretboard's accurate, it's quite clean, easy to play, and no major faults. So the pros, it's really amazing for the price. It was playable right out of the box, no major issues. Its weakness is definitely the standard pickups. Standard pickups, they have two issues. First of all, they're not terribly powerful, so not too much output from them. They sounded a little bit muddy and also very prone to electrical interference. So this is kind of an older house. The wiring is probably a little dated, but you know, there's a lot of places you'll go where you'll get electrical interference. The standard pickups very much prone to that. So one of the things I did to this was upgrade it with bare knuckle pickup down here. The challenge with pickups on a Franfret is very few people make the angled pickups. So these were a custom build. The cost I think was about 300 Canadian plus import duty. So the bass guitar is shown on the Thomann site at 150 euros. Then in Canada you have to import it and you have to pay some import duty. So with freight and with the import duty, it came all in at $365 Canadian to get it here in playable condition. Once it was upgraded with the Juggernaut pickups from bare knuckle, that was another 317, so it brought the total price up to about 637 Canadian dollars. So not a super cheap guitar, but it again is playable, literally right out of the box at the base price. So 150 euros if you happen to live in Germany and can get it straight from Thomann, that's a really good deal. And again, the shipping is going to depend country to country, but certainly a decent guitar for the money. You actually get, the Franfret allows it to work well if you're going to detune it. So if you're playing anything other than sort of standard tuning, this allows you to drop tune or tune down, a couple of steps, and it still stays in tune. It still sounds good. So that's the first one. That's the Harley Benton Franfret. So here's the second of the budget 7 strings. This one started off as a stock Jackson DNKY JS22-7. It originally came in black satin. As you can see, it no longer is black satin. This was probably one of my kind of more project guitars. But again, out of the box, this is a perfectly usable guitar. So country of origin is China, but they're making some pretty decent stuff now. Again, one-piece maple bolt-on neck, so nothing special about that. Comes with Jackson tuners that actually work pretty well. 24 frets, hardtail bridge, and it came with Jackson humbuckers. Of all of the sort of budget guitars, I've found the Jackson stock pickups to be quite decent. So this absolutely playable out of the box. The base price obtained in Canada was 355 Canadian dollars. So not a huge amount of money, perfectly playable. It was let down a little because the adjusting screws down in the bridge stuck out by maybe 4 or 5 millimeters. So if you're doing a lot of palm muting, it used to cut the crap out of your hand. My solution was to replace the entire bridge. A guitar tech later sort of told me, the fix for that is you just put shorter screws in. which is more time, a lot more effort, but probably less money if you've already got the screws, but again, it's time and effort. The other change that I made to this was upgrading the standard Jackson pickup with a Seymour Duncan Black Winter. So again, it came as a stock guitar, perfectly playable. Again, I wanted to play around with it, so it also got this interesting finish. There's a few pictures that I'll put in the video of what happened there. But again, quite a nice guitar. Interestingly, has a 26.5-inch scale, so slightly longer than most guitars. So this again, even though it's not a multi-scale or a Franfret, it will take down tuning fairly well. And again, quite an easy guitar to play. No major issues. Again, the cheaper ones you're always going to get, or at least I've never found one that's perfect. And in the dry Canadian climate, you get a little bit of roughness around the edges of the frets as the fingerboard sort of shrinks away, but they're relatively easily tidied up with a little bit of work. Quite a nice guitar, no really bad features, quite playable, and again, if you want to mess around with something and you want a project guitar that you can tweak and add to, it works quite well as a bass. So number 3 in the budget 7-string category. This is a SubZero Generation Pro Franfret 7-string. Bought on a UK website, country of origin Vietnam. This is kind of the one guitar I wouldn't recommend. And again, personal opinion, your mileage may vary. And a lot of these things were experiments. Again, was just looking at what are good entry-level 7-strings for somebody who just wants to take a look. So it looked really good on paper. It arrived with actual blemishes in the finish. They're not the easiest things to see, but again, for what's advertised as a pro guitar, not something really you would expect. Probably one of the guitars I came closest to returning. The thing kind of has, out of the box again, multi-piece neck, bolt-on, Franfret, so yeah, should be good for low tuning and stuff like that. It came with no-name locking tuners, and it actually has a decent bridge. It also came out of the box with no-name humbuckers, and I kind of have to say this was the worst guitar out of the box. Barely playable for a number of reasons. First off, if you are anywhere close to an electrical source, all you got was buzzing. The humbuckers very, very prone to electrical interference. And again, I've had a guitar, couple of things, one particularly lower end, built in China. They left the ground wire off. I checked the wiring, no wiring issues. They are just noisy pickups out of the box. You'd think that would be the end of the issues, and you'd think with locking tuners, hey, you get great tuning stability. Not so. The original tuners actually worked in kind of notches, so you could actually hear them kind of clicking as you tried to adjust. So the tuners, again, were very, very poor quality. So out of the box, poor fit and finish, terrible pickups, and poor tuning stability. The problems didn't really end there, but let me get onto that in a minute. So the first thing I did was replace the pickup. So this has from Lace an interesting thing called an Aluma death bar. Again, this solved the problem of needing something at an angle, slanted, to manage with the Franfret design. It's really difficult to see, but if you can just look under there, you'll notice the pickup is actually a strange flat, almost like a bridge shape. So instead of having the coils, there's some kind of aluminium structure. It works pretty well. They're out of a custom shop in California. The pickup was $173. That was Canadian imported. But it solved the problem. Absolutely silent. That's the other advantage of the Aluma pickups from Lace, is very, very little electrical interference. So that was kind of a benefit. The top pickup I just left in place, not something I terribly use. To solve the tuning problem, I managed to get a set of Goto tuners. Those came in at 154 Canadian. And then I kind of was trying to get it to the point where you could get decent action and no fret buzz. It found its way through two professional guitar setup guys. One basically had it for 3 days, returned it and said, there's nothing I can do with it, have it back, and didn't charge me. The second did some adjustments, gave it back and said, it's as good as I can get it, and charged me $50. So I was fairly unhappy with it. Then I'd been working with another setup guy. So I basically gave it to him as a last ditch hope for the thing, and maybe as a challenge to this guy. He looked at it and he's like, yeah, the frets aren't level. So he said, needs a complete fret leveling. Yeah, we can get the neck was basically straight, but even with the neck straight, there were some frets that were just basically completely out of alignment. So $150 later, it came back after having a complete fret leveling and setup. That actually got it playable. So out of the box, my personal opinion, the thing is pretty close to useless. Not something I would recommend not playable. And for $347 US, it ended up at $589, so nearly $600 by the time it's in Canada. For something that really isn't playable, not good value for money at all. It can be rendered playable, but you kind of have to give it a lot of attention. The frets were very rough as well, so it's had a lot of attention to make it playable. Right now, it's probably as good as the Harley Benton was out of the box. So you can start to see a pattern here. You know, if I was going to recommend buy something, the Harley Benton, good value for money. This thing, not so much. So it was an interesting experiment. It looks the business. I mean, it's a beautiful looking guitar, and from a distance looks super cool. In terms of playability, it's still not one I want to go and play. So probably that's the downside of this. Even with all the money spent on it, it's still kind of a failed experiment. And now we're moving on to number 4 in the budget entry-level 7 strings. And this is where things actually start to get, for me, exciting, because I love this thing. It's a Harley Benton Amarok 7. It's beautifully constructed. The fit and finish is absolutely flawless. It's an Indonesian made guitar, suspected to be one of the factories that built some other interesting guitars. Comes with EMG active pickups. It also comes with Grover locking tuners. So again, out of the box, you've actually got pretty much everything you're likely to want. So on this, I didn't need to do any upgrades. The pickups are awesome. The tuning stability is awesome. Beautiful fit and finish. The fret job is excellent, again, out of the box. Looks a nice guitar, and again, you've got neck-through construction. So absolutely nothing to complain about. Again, hardtail bridge, so nothing weird there. Not a Franfret. If it has a weakness, it probably isn't great for taking lower tunings. But quite honestly, it's good enough. And as a regular playable 7-string, this thing is fantastic. It sounds weird. I really have nothing else to say. It's a beautiful guitar. If I go and pick up a 7-string now, this is the one I pick up. List price €498, again from Thomann. So it's still a pretty inexpensive guitar. Fully landed in Canada with freight, import duty, converted to Canadian dollars, comes out at 847 Canadian dollars. So sub $1,000 Canadian. And this one's professional quality. So, you know, again, when you look at what I'm comparing these to in terms of 6 strings, you know, I've played and I have a Fender Stratocaster, play a Gibson SG, I've got, you know, a couple of interesting Schechters, all really nice. This is easily up there with that quality, and I would say compared to the Gibson, this is actually better fit and finish, better build quality, better tuning stability. So value for money is absolutely awesome. It's not a cheap guitar. So, you know, again, I'm talking about, you know, what can you do at entry level? So if 847 Canadian is, you know, higher budget than you have, it may still be kind of out of range. So you might look at something a little cheaper. If you can afford it, I absolutely recommend this, because when you finish doing tweaking and stuff like that to make some of the cheaper ones playable, this starts to work out at better value for money. It's an awesome guitar right out of the box. Of all of them, it's the most highly recommended one from my personal perspective. And the final guitar in the budget or entry-level 7-string category. This is the only used guitar in the group. And I kind of include this for reference because it's another way to go. This is an Ibanez RGA Ix7 FM. Wonderfully imaginative naming Ibanez gives its guitars. This was made somewhere between 2016 and 2019. 24 fret, bolt-on neck, ebony fingerboard with binding, and it comes out of the box with DiMaggio pickups. It also has, again, out of the box, locking Goto tuners. It's almost like they read my mind when they were making this, because it literally just comes with a single volume control, the selector switch, and a coil split. So in terms of, you know, a metal guitar, it's absolutely there. It actually looks quite a beautiful guitar as well. So fit and finish is everything you'd expect from Ibanez. In terms of cost, new, I think it retailed at 1,429 Canadian. Now, for some people, condition is everything. This again was used. It's not in the first flush of youth. You can actually see it's got some dings and scratches on it, but it's no less playable for that. The fit and finish is absolutely excellent. It's everything you'd expect from Ibanez. It actually looks nice, and once you get more than 4 or 5 feet away, you can't really see the dings and scratches. It still looks cool. I picked it up used at $734, tax included. Came through an actual guitar shop. The guy there I know fairly well, and I think he'd had it in stock for a while, so I got a pretty good price on it. Again, out of the box or out of the used guitar shop, utterly playable. And I think this actually is about the same kind of overall quality as the Harley Benton Amarok 7. It's a little different in terms of character. The Amarok has active pickups, this has passive. This one currently is strung a little heavier. It's not a Franfret, but it is currently, I think, in a little A standard for the 7-string, so it's a couple of steps down. It handles that really well. I've got no complaints about this at all. The action, the way it's currently set up, is fractionally higher than the Amarok. But again, this is another good way to go. So from a price perspective, it came in a little bit cheaper. There's all sorts of stuff on the second-hand market. So depending on whether you want something new and untouched, or whether you're prepared to put up with something that's had a little bit of use, again, this I would totally recommend. If you can find something like this used, not a stupid amount of money, and it's an absolutely awesome guitar. So to sum up, if you're in the market for a 7-string, you're maybe a beginner or intermediate player and you just want to check the things out, I honestly don't think you can go wrong with the current offerings from Harley Benton. In terms of value for money, this thing at 150 euros, even when you've paid the extra and you look at the potential weakness, it's not got the best pickups, but if you just want to have something that you can learn on, it's playable. It's playable out of the box. It's actually a Franfret, so you get the benefit of the multi-scale. And for not a lot of money, it's a really nice guitar. If you don't want to go with the Harley Benton range, or you don't want to import something, I would think the Jackson is probably very much on a par with this. They're slightly different in terms of character, but they're both good entry-level guitars. Not a lot of money, and both quite playable. If you have a little bit more money and your budget is, let's say a little larger, and you want a really nice guitar, then the Harley Benton Amarok 7 is absolutely awesome. Probably the nicest thing that Harley Benton does currently. Again, neck-through construction, you're not going to see anything like that at this price point with anybody else, to the best of my knowledge. The fit and finish is awesome, it sounds good, and it's great to play. And the final thing on this, for me, it just feels right. So there's the choices, there's the review. Again, it's all personal opinion. Your mileage may vary, but I just wanted to put something out there that can potentially help people who are looking at different options. What's out there, what can I do, what should I expect? At the lower price range, expect to have to do a little bit of setup work. So you may need to adjust, the truss rod, the action. You may need to do a little bit of fret finishing. This thing required pretty much no setup at all. So again, just go out, have fun.